If you've ever worked a night shift alone, you already know that feeling, that moment, somewhere around 3 a.m., when the building gets too quiet, when the hum of the fluorescent lights feels like it's the only thing keeping you company, when you start wondering whether you're actually alone.
What I'm about to tell you is not a ghost story. It's not a legend. It's not something someone's cousin's friend supposedly experienced. This is what happened to me on a Tuesday night in March at the Hargrove Medical Center in rural Ohio. And I will never set foot in that building again.
My name doesn't matter, but for this story, call me Daniel. I was 26 years old, fresh out of a bad breakup, drowning in student loans, and desperate for work. A friend told me about a security guard position at Hargrove Medical. It was a small, private psychiatric facility, the kind that's been around since the 1940s. 3 floors, about 40 rooms, and a basement that nobody talked about. The pay was decent. The hours, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Monday through Thursday. My job was simple. Walk the hallways every hour, check the doors, sign the logbook. Don't disturb the patients. Easy money, right? My supervisor showed me around the building. He pointed to the elevator, said it was out of service. He pointed to the 3rd floor stairwell, said to avoid it after midnight. And then, almost as an afterthought, he pointed to a gray door at the end of the 1st floor corridor. A door with no window, no sign, just a keypad, and a heavy steel handle. Don't worry about that one, he said. That's storage. I should have asked more questions. I didn't. My first 2 weeks were uneventful. I'd arrive at 9:55, sign in, do my rounds, drink terrible coffee, and watch the clock. The building was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, more like held breath quiet. Like the building itself was waiting for something. But I noticed small things. The way the fluorescent light in room 14 would flicker, always at 2 a.m., always for exactly 3 seconds. And the logbook from previous guards. Normal entries, except for one page near the back, where someone had written the same sentence, over and over, in smaller and smaller handwriting. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Until the letters were too small to read. I assumed it was a joke. I closed the logbook and didn't think about it again. For a while. It was a Tuesday, March 11th. My rounds were normal. 1st floor, clear. 2nd floor, clear. I was heading back down the stairwell when I heard it. A sound. From below. Which didn't make sense because below the 1st floor was the basement. And the basement wasn't on my route. The sound was hard to describe. Not quite a voice, not quite music. It was rhythmic, like humming, but lower than any human voice I'd heard. And it was coming from behind that gray door, the one Gerald called storage. I stood in the corridor for a full minute, listening. The sound continued, steady, low, almost like a machine. But machines don't breathe. And whatever was behind that door sounded like it was breathing. I knocked. I don't know why I did it. Every instinct said walk away, but I knocked 3 times on the gray door. And the humming stopped. Immediately, complete silence. And then, from the other side of the door, a voice. A woman's voice. She said one word. Finally. I stepped back. My heart was in my throat. I looked around the corridor, empty. I looked at my phone, 3:07 a.m. I looked at the door, and I walked away, fast. I finished my shift, signed out, and sat in my car for 20 minutes. Before I could make myself drive home, I quit the next day, sent Gerald a text, said I'd found another job. He replied in under a minute. One word. Smart. I should have left it there, Most people would have, but I'm the type of person who can't let things go. So I started looking into Hargrove Medical Center. What I found took me 3 weeks of digging, county records, old newspaper archives, and one very uncomfortable phone call with a retired nurse named Patricia, who agreed to talk to me only if I never used her real name. Patricia had worked at Hargrove in the early 1990s. She told me that the basement, which Gerald had called storage, had originally been a treatment ward. Back in the 1940s and 50s, it was used for patients considered beyond standard care, which meant patients who had been there so long they had become part of the building. No family, no records, no discharge plans, just there. The ward was officially closed in 1961. All patients were transferred. That was the official record. But Patricia told me something different. She said the older nurses would talk in whispers about a woman, a patient who had been admitted in 1947, a woman who never spoke, except to hum. The same 7 notes over and over. They called her Eleanor. Whether that was her real name, nobody knew. Patricia said Eleanor had become a legend among the long-term staff. They said she was still there, not as a patient, not as a ghost exactly, but as something that had simply refused to leave. Something that had hummed in that basement for so long that the building had started to hum with her. And every few years, always on a Tuesday, always after 3 a.m., someone would get close enough to that gray door, and she would hear them, and she would say the same thing she'd been waiting decades to say. Do. I don't know what Eleanor was. I don't know if she was ever a real person. What I know is this. I heard her, and she heard me. And Gerald's one-word reply when I quit tells me I'm not the first person to knock, and I won't be the last. If you've ever had a moment, in a hospital, in an old building, at 3 a.m., where you felt something notice you, I believe you. Sleep well tonight, and whatever you do, don't knock. Thanks for watching Silent Shadows Horror. Subscribe for more true stories from the places people don't talk about. Leave a comment below. Have you ever worked a night shift and heard something you couldn't explain? I read every single one.